I'm stumped. I don't even know how to answer that.
Welcome to the Young Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Malina, and I'm super excited to bring you this podcast where we explore the journeys and advice of successful leaders. Today's guest is a tech and cybersecurity strategist, entrepreneur, and lawyer. With a background in law enforcement and experience working with Microsoft and the University of Ottawa, he co-founded Just Tech to help small businesses leverage technology. I'm super excited to dive into his journey about technology and cybersecurity. So please welcome Mr. Ritesh Kotak. Hello, Mr. Kotak. Welcome to the Young Leaders Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Super excited to have you today and learn so much about your expertise in technology and cybersecurity. But before we get into the amazing topic of tech, I'm gonna ask you a question that was left from our previous guest. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So my previous guest's question is, why not you?
Why not me?
Yes.
Well, you're starting off with all the hard questions, right? Why not you? Why not me? Wow. I'm stumped. I don't even know how to answer that. Well, look, I think the beauty of kind of what I do is the fact that I can't do it by myself, right? And one thing I've been blessed with is having just incredible people around me, and building out a pretty diverse network of individuals. And kind of when people are, is this a tech issue? Is this a legal issue? Is this a cyber issue? Stuff like that. I think when you have different experiences and you bring different things to the table, then you can provide those different perspectives. And I think one of the things that I've always prided myself on is not only having that diverse opinion of thought, but the second big thing I always is a line that was left with me, and that was personal usage is a precondition to comprehension. And that's something I've always believed in. I think if you're going to talk about something, you got to do it yourself. You got to practice what you preach and put your money where your mouth is. And, it's one thing to be theoretical and out there. It's another thing to actually have the theory, but also be able to roll up your sleeves and do the work, right? And that's always my motto. And I hope other people do that as well. And but when people ask me like, Ritesh, like, what's your unique value proposition, or what do you bring to the table that someone else doesn't? I was like, look, there's a lot of people that do incredible stuff. I don't. There's incredible talent out there, but I can't speak about everyone else. But this is me. Think about it at a very high theoretical policy level, but also be able to go down and right down to the ground level and roll up your sleeves and actually do the stuff.
And so about cybersecurity, what is it and why is it important?
Well, I think cybersecurity, at the end of the day, like, again, there's so many academic definitions, right? But it is um, protecting your assets, making sure that only people that are supposed to access systems and data are the ones that access it. I think we hear about breaches all the time, and everyone's like, "Oh, there's probably a technological solution to it. There's probably some software that we can buy, or we can outsource this problem away." But to me, cybersecurity actually goes beyond the zeros and ones, and to me, it's a people thing. I think a lot of the time we think about stuff as there's a technological answer to it. So, let's go buy this piece of software. It's going to solve all our problems. So let's throw technology at a problem. But then you have the technology, and it's like, well, do I have the right processes in place? And then if it's the right processes, and then now let me go and train the people on it. But when it comes to cybersecurity, I like to flip things around. I think it's people process than technology, and making sure that people are um, understand the importance of protecting systems, the importance of really thinking through the technological components, and then protecting assets, access control, encryption. All those things kind of fall within cybersecurity, but at the end of the day, it is um, making sure that your assets, such as your data, is only accessed by people who should be accessing it, and not someone who shouldn't. And that's probably at the most basic level.
Well, that was a very interesting point. So I use LastPass for all my passwords. I know some people use, I think it's one password, and then there's also two-factor authentication. How helpful is that really to save yourself from leaking your information?
I think it's very helpful, but again, let's use a hockey analogy, right? A Wayne Gretzky analogy, right? It's don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going. And what we're seeing is even when it comes to passwords themselves, the most common thing people click on is forgot password, right? Let's be serious, right? Like it's I forgot my password because I'm being forced to change it all the time, or I'm on a different device and I might not have my password keeper there, and so I'm clicking on these things. Well, all the more reason that we really need to move, and this is what a lot of organizations are doing now, is moving to a password-less world and system. So we're seeing things like um, these keys, like these UB keys coming out, right? Where or pass keys, where it involves a level of biometrics, but also physically plugging in a device. There's even NFC technology on it, so you could tap it on the back of your phone, but it validates and verifies that you are who you say you are, in addition to other forms of authentication. It's called multi-factor authentication, multi being more than one. It's not single factor, which is a password, or dual factor, which is maybe a password and a text message. It's multi-factor. There's so many different steps that have to happen before you're given access into a particular system or network. And I think that is kind of where we're headed. I get asked all the time, Ritesh, do you recommend this or do you recommend that? And yeah, look, use strong passwords, don't recycle them. We hear about companies and organizations that actually, when you type in a password, you see asterisk, 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 asterisk. Technically, your password should be being saved in what we call a hash value. So it's instead of it's the password being password 123, which by the way is a horrible password. Never use it. But this is just for conversation's sake. On the back end, it would be a string of characters that just cannot be reverse engineered to know that it's password 123 or capital P for password 123. Um, and I think that is really important. Um, but there's been companies that have been caught leaving it in plain text. So this is why you don't want to recycle passwords, because we hear about credential stuffing attacks. That's where your password is obtained by a hacker and or fraudster, and they just go out and they exploit. They use the same username and password on multiple popular sites to see if they can gain access. So that's one of the reasons you don't recycle. But all the more reasons that organizations and vendors should be making multi-factor authentication mandatory, making it that you must have certain level of certain level of um, systems or controls in place before you can access data. And we're starting to see these passkeys becoming extremely popular within organizations. So I think, yes, strong passwords, absolutely. Multi-factor authentication, absolutely. Using the authenticator apps and things like that. But I really think the future here is passwordless, and using passkeys with combination of biometrics.
And what about how a lot of people I know have like an Alexa at home or Google Home? How safe are those really? Because I think in one of your recordings I saw, you were speaking a little bit about that they can record your conversations. How true is that? And is it like is it commonly known for them to record?
So they're not recording for say. What they're doing is they're listening for a wake word. And when that wake word is used, then it starts recording and it takes what you say and it processes it, usually not on the edge, so not on the device. It sends it up to the cloud. And it will go through and be like, okay, what is Ritesh trying to say here? And then it will send some sort of action down, right? So turn off the lights or call this person or do this or do that. There are certain on device or what we call on edge solutions as well, but usually with some of these things, they use the internet to process the requests. Um, I always tell people change those wake words where possible. I think that these are very very powerful tools, and we think about the cybersecurity component of it, but I think about family members who have who need certain level of accessibility, and they can use this technology, which is extremely powerful, to access the world around them. to do things that they couldn't do before, to be able to get services um, that were maybe out of reach or just not possible. So we this world of opportunities now because of large language models and AI and processing and things like that. It opens up, and I think that's definitely a positive. But it's important to think about the security implications as well. So me personally, you can't use these applications. If I think about my phone, I've actually gone in and changed the settings where I can use it, but the device needs to be unlocked, so it's not consistently listening. Um, I'm not saying that your device is picking up these conversations and are literally hot mics or live mics, but they do listen for wake words. And you mentioned Alexa, but the thing is that we're starting to see voice activated technology. So microphones being placed in numerous types of devices as well. Everything from thermostats to televisions, especially as we start discussing IoT. So, just things to think about. Clearly, this technology opens up a world of opportunities, but there's also some security risks that come with it, which can also easily be mitigated.
Well, that was a very interesting perspective, Mr. Kotak. So now, all over the news, it's been like we've been seeing that Australia has banned TikTok for kids under the age of 16. Do you think that's a good thing or do you think that's a bad thing? How do you think it will affect the society?
So instead of giving my personal opinion, what I did was I actually put out a poll on my social media and said, good idea or bad idea. I did appear in mainstream media as well, uh, discussing this exact issue, the Australian bill. Now there's a 1 year for it to actually get implemented. We're still waiting to see what the big tech platforms say about it, how they're actually going to roll out age verification related systems and do it in a safe, privacy focused way. Again, we don't want big tech also having all this data on young adults across the country, right? I think that in itself is um, a component that that goes into it, uh, or for consideration. So when I asked the question on my social media, 85%, or I believe it was 85% last count, and I think I had about 40, 50 people that responded, said that it's a good idea, and 15% that said it was a bad idea. And there is like different components to it, like, or different factors. The first one is you're you're accessing a the government is deciding what is appropriate and what is not, not a parent, of whether their child should be on social media or not. And I think there are safe ways of using the platform. A lot of these platforms do have child or children focused settings. So from a privacy perspective, the fact that if you're a child, you can't strangers can't find you, adults can't message you, parents can have access to certain things. So yeah, there are like these settings that are already in place with most platforms. Some better than others. But there's also this other component of it as well, and that is, look, we have this misinformation, disinformation, deciphering fact from fiction is very difficult. We want people getting information from legitimate sources, not on social media where they're essentially unvetted. Anyone can say anything, um, especially as the mind is developing. So, again, all good arguments, right? That that are fair. So, is there a right answer? Is there a wrong answer? Is there an age that at why 16? Why not 14? Why not 18? Right? Those are all questions that will be debated country to country. But I think what's clear is that um, and I heard this example, right, is when you have a new piece of technology like cars, right? Like when cars came out, I think it was on the social on CTV where I I, I saw like a little clip of it. So I'd have to verify that. But regardless, I think the example that this anchor used or this host used was when cars first came out, there were no laws. Anyone could drive. You could do whatever you wanted. There were no seatbelts. But as the technology evolved, there were parameters that were put on to make it safer. You know, you can't drink and drive. You got to have a seatbelt. There's rules of the road. You got to take a driving test. You know, even with cars, right? Like there's a lot of standards when it comes to when it comes to vehicles. There's safety standards, multiple testing, um, all these types of things. So, is it that social media now is kind of going through what the automobile industry went through when you know when it first came out with cars and you can go and do whatever you wanted? Well, now it's like, well, wait a second. You know, we did put the cart before the horse, and now we're trying to figure out how to kind of rewrite history and get this right and put those safety rails and the safeguards in place. So and that's kind of where social media and big tech is. It was kind of this wild west where you could go and do whatever you wanted, and now regulators are trying to catch up. Whether they're going about it the right way or the wrong way, only history will tell. But it's pretty clear that we have 20th century frameworks for 21st century problems, and we really got to get it right.
So, what about the AI aspect of integrating it with cybersecurity and technology? Because I've seen so many things online of routers now being able to have, I think, a detection to see how many people are in a room, and people being able to connect these wires to your head and then recreate what you've dreamt of or thought of and create that image. How do you think, like, will AI make cybersecurity safer? Will it not? What will it do? What do you think it will do?
So there's clearly ethical considerations that when it comes to any type of emerging technology, you got the good, the bad, and the evil. You have the weaponization of certain technology, but then it also opens up a world of possibilities as well. I think with anything or any type of technology, whether it be AI, you know, we're talking about quantum as well. Kind of the list goes on and on and on, is that you got to look at it from two perspectives. You got to look at it as AI as a sword. So how or the technology as a sword. So how can this technology be used to weaponize and inflict harm upon society and individuals, but also as a shield? That same technology can be used to protect society, create opportunities, do things that we traditionally couldn't do before. So you got to look at it from those lenses, and that's why whenever I give talks or I'm talking about AI, one of the things I always discuss is the ethical consideration. And whenever you're doing any type of technology, you know, this can't ethics, privacy, security, the law, so the legal implications cannot be an afterthought. It has to be built in right from the get go. You know, we call it like privacy by design, security by design, ethics by design. It needs to be built right into the design from the ground level up. This can't be a tag on. It needs to be something that's just as important as the engineering of the solution. So again, I think that is the conversation. It's not so much is it safe, is it bad, is it good, is it evil? It is the there's two sides to the coin here, the sword and the shield. What are we going to do to leverage the good while mitigating the evil?
And before we end off, do you mind leaving a mystery question for our next guest?
A mystery question for the next guest. You know, again, I think I had a very difficult one. So maybe I'll make it a little bit easier for the next guest. And if you could be any superhero, which one would you be and why?
Oh, that's an. I'm actually excited to hear what the next guest answer would be for that. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Kotek. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I do hope our viewers did as well. That wraps up this episode of the Young Leaders Podcast. To everyone listening in, make sure to stay tuned for the next episode.